Hey everyone, what's up? This is Simon from the Ionic Academy, back with a new video and back with a new home. So we moved to a new house and this is the new setup of my room. I will still work a bit on the light because I think my face is not looking like it should. It's a bit too much. Anyway, what we're going to do today is build a simple app that allows us to use the CRUD functionalities with Ionic Storage. So Ionic Storage is more or less a wrap around local storage or the SQLite database that we can easily use with Ionic. And we're gonna add the CRUD functions, so create, read, update, and delete for the storage, because it might not be clear how to use the storage actually. So let's build a simple app. I've created a blank new Ionic app. I think beta 16 is currently going on. And we will start with a new service that we add to our project by simply calling the generator. As well, in newer projects or since I don't know which beta version, we also have to manually install Ionic Storage. So it's not installed by default anymore in your project. And finally, we also, of course, need the Cordova plugin if you want to add this functionality to your mobile app for iOS and Android. If you're only building for the web, then of course it's no problem. So let's go ahead with the Ionic Storage module for root. So we're gonna have to add this to our app module if we want to use the actual Ionic Storage package. So now our app is ready to use Ionic Storage in the browser. It will use IndexedDB on the device. It would now use the SQLite database. So let's create a simple wrapping service around our storage. And of course, this now depends a lot on what you want to store. So in our case, we will simply assume a little interface and call it item, and all the items can have an ID, a title, a value, and perhaps a modified date, which is actually a number if you simply use getTime. So this could be a simple interface. The most important part right here is the ID, which helps us to later delete or update a specific object from the storage. If you're working with arrays and indices, whatever, you know what I mean, I think, then you might not need something like an ID. But if you have a little object or map inside the storage, you're gonna need this. All right, to use the storage, simply add it through our constructor. And if you're using Visual Studio Code, make sure to pick the right import, because normally it will only import some generic storage class or no class at all. Okay, so create, read, update. This is create, and this will simply create a new item. And we're gonna copy this. So then we got get items, which will, or let's add create, read, and then of course update, and finally delete, which is delete item, in which case we actually only need the ID in our case. And for update, well, the item is okay. Now these are the basic functionalities that our storage service should implement. And also, if you want to keep a good coding practice or nice standards in your code, you should also specify the return type. And in our case, this will be a promise for add item. Add item actually doesn't really need something, but it's nice if you can use the then block to show a little toast and you're sure that the item was added. But of course, you could also simply call add item and show the toast, because it's pretty fast anyway. All right, let's get started with add item perhaps to get rid of this warning. In this case, we cannot simply start by throwing the item into the storage. All of the time we should call a get on our storage to get the currently saved items. So perhaps also add a little items key up here, whatever you're gonna name it, doesn't really matter. So we can use this items key all the time and don't have to use the word, so we can go wrong. Okay, then we will get back hopefully or maybe some items which should be an array. All right, I think I messed up the brackets. No, we're fine. Okay, we're good. So by specifying this, we only add the little interface we've added to the return value. This doesn't actually change anything. And still, we need to check if we already got items and also if not. So in the beginning, we will reach this block, and in this case, we should return this .storage set for the items key, which is our key, the value, and this will be an array with only one item. So because if you're having an array in there, you need to check like this all the time if it is already there or not yet. So in the case it doesn't exist, simply add this one, and otherwise you can just say to the current items, push my new item, of course items, and then write the items back to the storage. So that's the pretty much everything we need for add item. It's actually super simple. Get items is even simpler. So this .storage get items key, and of course this is also in promise with an array of items. So because we got the interface, we can add the nice type definitions, the typing information or the return value to the functions, and we can continue with update item. So for update item, let's copy this one because we again have to check the values inside the storage, and if for some reason we don't have items or the item's length is 0, this means we cannot update any item. So what we're gonna return here is promise with any, because we sometimes return null as well. But if we got some items, we need to iterate over them. So if you had a map, you could directly check for an ID, but in our case, we simply have the objects inside an array stored. So in that case, we will use a new array, and we will add all the items to this array again, because, well, there are many ways to do this. We could also go through the array and simply filter out and change one element. I could think of at least, I think, 3 different ways how we could tackle this problem. This is just one way to update them. Always confusing items and item. So we go over everything that we got in the storage, and if the item ID of one of these items is equal to the item that we want to update, in that case we will push the new item to our empty array, and otherwise we will always push exactly the one we're currently iterating. So this will give us a new array which has the same length like before. All the items are still the same, only the one we've updated is the new item. And then you can again go ahead and return something, or just leave it out and don't return anything, so you don't have to wait for that function. And there we go, save back the new items, and now you have the update functionality as well. So now we got create, we can read, we can update, and finally delete. I think you could actually stop the video and do it on your own, but let's do this pretty quick. For delete, we can also return an item or a promise with an item, of course. And this entry point is what I'm going to copy. So in that case, again, same check. If there are no items, we can immediately return. Otherwise, we could have a little array again of no items, and then for of items, iterate over the existing items again. And if the ID of one item is not equal to our own ID, then we will keep this inside the toKeep array. So we will basically filter out this ID. I think we could also write it with RxJS and the filter again, just like before. There are many ways to do this. This is pretty much a basic example, and it shows nicely what's actually happening. Okay, and then of course we want to keep them and simply override them. So you see, most of the time we're actually replacing the whole array as it is, because that's pretty easy and fast. If you got a lot of information in the storage, perhaps don't store the information in an array, because as you can see, you have to update it all the time. So in that case, perhaps have a map, have different keys, flexible keys, perhaps my image, and then some ID follows, so you can easily access the image or whatever you have stored with this. All right, we're not yet finished, of course. We need to use what we've added so far, but I will bring in the view real quick so we can talk about this. Simple Ion header, no problem. Ion content, we have a little input to add a new item to a list, and a button, of course, to add the item. And then we got the actual list in which we will iterate over the items, so we can see the title and value, the modified date, all the things we added to the item, and then little sliding buttons to see our update and delete functionality. So let me already bring up Ionic Surf in the background. That's the home page. And now for the TypeScript file, I will also bring in the things, because this video is mostly about the storage service. So in here, we got the items, we got a new item. Actually, this is a syntax I learned along the way to prevent any errors with TypeScript, because this is not working, but this is working. Great. In the beginning, when the platform is ready, of course, make sure your platform is ready. If you're working with Ionic Storage, we will load our items, which is only one call to our storage service to get the items from the storage. To add a new item, we got our little new item here, and we can set modified an ID simply to the date in our example. And then all we have to do is call the functionality on the service. And because we're using the promises pretty much in every function, we can then subscribe. We are not using this item. Of course, you could handle it in some way and say your item, whatever, was added. But in our case, we will just show a little toast with item added. So this is just a helper function for the show toast. And then we reload the items. So I've added this comment. You can, of course, also edit directly, but I don't know. I just like to keep things in sync, and if I load them again, I can be completely sure that I got the latest and all the items and nothing has changed in between. Okay, create read from the view side, update again, just the same. If you've created the service in a nice fashion way, there should be no problems to use it inside your other files. And delete again, still using the service. And in here a little special, because With Ionic 4 or the latest beta, there was a little problem, so you have to close the sliding items inside the list. I don't know, maybe it has already disappeared when you're using this tutorial. So let me bring in our app and then we will see undefined import. Actually only a small problem with Ionic Serve. So let's go back to our app and simply add my title, whatever, okay, not really whatever, and you see the item is added. We see the toast notification, so toast is really there, and we see the little timestamp and the information. Now we can go ahead and update our object, and there we go. The item is updated, so the update functionality simply adds updated to the title. So if we do it again, we got it updated twice. Okay, now how to check where your items actually live. An interesting question many people starting with Ionic have. So simply open the application tab. So normally we are right here and we go to application, IndexedDB, Ionic storage, and then to Ionic KV, key value. And there we see the key, my items, and we can even inspect everything in here. Oops, make it a bit smaller. We can see the whole items right in here. We can see the updated title, the modified date, all the items. So the only thing that's not working in here is live update like you have with Firebase. So therefore we would have to go back, refresh the database, and then we see that we got all the 4 elements. And of course, we should be able to delete pretty much everything, refresh, go back, and we see only 1 title is left. And also what works is going here and simply deleting this one. And if you now reload the application, you see that the items are actually gone. So everything is working in both directions. And that's pretty much everything for today. Using the CRUD functionalities with Ionic storage is actually easy. You might just have to iterate a few times over the information depending if you have an array or an object. Just make sure that your arrays don't get too big. In that case, use the approach with something like a dynamic ID that you then perhaps store in another place. So an array of IDs that reference to the actual objects inside the storage. If you enjoyed this tutorial, make sure to subscribe to my channel below and also check out the ionicacademy.com, which is also the place where the code of this quick win is hosted, and many more courses are available for the members of the Ionic Academy. So I hope to see you inside. Have a great day and take care.